welcome to the Lumber Room track for the day 3. Our host Angela will be here in a couple of moments, but I could start and introduce myself. So, my name is Ante Tomic. I'm going to be the first speaker today. So, a little bit about me. I'm in InfoBip for 7.5 years. I love rubber ducks and I'm all about traveling, exploring, and everything. Okay, anyway, so let's get started. So, labas rytas, everyone. Sorry, a second. So, labas rytas, everyone, and labas visiems. Labai smagu dar kartą būti Vilniuje. And ar karą pagalvojate apie dizaino pritaikymą įvairiom kultūrom. Mano vardas yra Ante Tomic, yra esu vyrenysis, programų inžinieris įmonėje InfoBip. Šiandien būsiu jūsų gidas nuostabiame lokalizacijos pasaulyje, nepriklausomai nuo jūsų patirties šioje srityje. Aš čia esu tam, kad atsakyčiau į visus jūsų klausimus. Tad pasiruoškime ir pasinerkime į šią nuostabią kelionę. Thank you. Yeah. I wanted to surprise a little bit for Lithuanian in the beginning. So, did you ever think about catering for different cultures in one single design? Well, my name is Ante Tomic, and I'm a senior software engineer in InfoBip who will be your guide to the remarkable world of localization. So we are going to look how to connect different perspectives, so developers, product managers, testers, designers, and everything else. So regardless of your background, I'm here to serve all of your curiosity needs. So let's get embark and start on this exciting voyage. So just to introduce myself a little bit better, who is this human actually in front of you? So I'm 7 years in the game, and I'm working on web infrastructure, React, Webpack, basically micro frontends, developer customer experience, and much more. But I'm also here working on the optimization. So when you interact with our webs, that is nothing short of exceptional. By the way, I'm not just a coding machine, right? I also have a fun side. As you can see by these cute duckies, right? So I am also someone who loves sharing wisdom at meetups, conferences, and I'm also an educator like this academic ducky. And of course, I'm also a hobby photographer like this photographic ducky. This is totally me. Yeah. So, I like exploring the world, and I, of course, collect rubber ducks and necklaces. So if you're intrigued, just hang around because we are gonna check more. Anyway, let's get started. So let me lay some the groundwork. So I stand before you as a developer. I'm not just any developer. I'm actually probably one of the developers who had the most experiences with accessibility because I have a disability myself. So I'm actually 55% deaf in both ears. But I've used that unique situation that I had so that it can be a guiding word in my life and work. And so it also enhanced my situation to look at things differently so that I can achieve stuff and, approach it differently, especially localization. And my end game to this is to help you connect with your product and help ensure that your product reaches your audience effectively. And of course, I want to bring you some new outlook as someone who has worked a lot with localization, because I have seen the process like in details and all inside out. So I really know a lot about it. Inside InfoBip where I'm working, I actually work on setting up the whole localization framework. So I want to I wish to give you a developer perspective, like from a little bit different angle, so that it can be something new for absolutely everyone. And so after all, we are all striving to get our products globally available. Am I right? Okay. My main goal is basically so that we can build truly localized applications that actually feel natural for everyone. So I hope that this perspective that I will offer will be useful for all of you. Anyway, at the beginning, let's actually talk about the lingo that we will be using. It sounds like I'm having a joke, but I'm not having a joke. So I want to introduce you to 4 terms if someone is not familiar. So we are going to check what is I-18N, L10N, T9N, and G11N. So what to crack, right? Anyway, let's decode them together, right? So we have 4 important pillars of localization, and they are globalization, translation. We have then localization. We have internationalization, and of course, we have globalization. And if we want to learn a little bit more about those 4 concepts, woof, let's roll around and check it out. So let's explore a little bit briefly about them inside of continuous localization process. So what does each of these pillars do? Like what the crack are they doing, right? Let's check it out. So I want to first talk about translation. It's simply changing translation from one language to another. Hard as hell, right? Because we have thank you in English, for example, and let's say that we have Lithuanian. So, for example, we have English, which says thank you, and we have ačiū, of course, bless you, but okay, I'm kidding. We have ačiū, of course, in Lithuanian. But the process actually that's important here is that we have 2 another additional processes. The first one is translation memory, where we like save everything that was translated so that we can basically automatically get it and retrieve it. And the second one is something called a glossary, where we actually help establish consistency and actually help it, align everywhere. So keep your eyes peeled so that we can check out more. Then we have our second pillar. Let's see this cool element, which is localization. And it's not just a buzzword, so because it actually helps us tailor our product so that it can be adapted for the audiences. And for example, when you have translators, this is actually where the localization, translating for their side happens. For example, one important thing I have to mention is something called a locale. So you usually don't have a language, but you also can have, for example, Spanish in Spain and Spanish in Latin America. Those are the same language, but in different regions, and they can be written differently. So we will also see that when we have localization, that it's not only just about translating the phrases, that it is much more, And I will tell you also a little bit about it from the experience. And anyway, the third part is when developers get their hands nasty. So it is internationalization, where we actually want to ensure that we embed localization translations and localizing our products inside, actually. Yeah. So we take a deep dive, like to different languages, we can do different integrations, and we basically set it up and the product is open on the device that is easy peasy lemon squeezy and it is completely localized, right? So picture this, opening on device, you can have different framework, you can have, different languages, you can have also different translations, and of course, once you have everything ready to code, but your main goal is that you want to actually get that on source control. So you want to get it available, you want to get it visible. And you usually have the code here. And the second part, what we also have is, some of you maybe have heard about translation management system. So we have a couple of possible solutions usually, but whatever we are doing, we want to get it actually inside our translation management system so that it can be hooked to all of the systems, and those are usually cloud-based, and we can actually get a lot of those done. So that, for example, if you have this little ducky, it can understand everything, and for example, if you are translating from duck language to English, we can understand what the quack actually means, right? Yeah. So, second, I don't want the duck to fall. And the last part is globalization, which is basically rocket fuel for boosting your return on investment. So that actually what we are doing makes sense, because here there is usually one query which is called can't read, won't buy, which actually said that 67% of the customers actually prefer that the content is available in their language. And for example, for our products, it's usually, for example, when we have Spanish customers, we have like more than 50% of our Spanish customers using our Infobit products actually Spanish only. So That also shows you why adapting and switching is important, because you get return on investment. You get something from it. Anyway, I want to base this on examples because I've learned as an educator and presenter that complex topics like this can be hard. So let's actually make the tricky subject shine. So as an educator, I want to use examples and challenge it a little bit so that you can think about why is something good or not good. Okay, and I want to start from mentioning like we have Canada, beautiful views, beautiful pictures, am I right? And of course, what is important to say with Canada, apart from beautiful landscapes, is that Canada has two important languages. So it is English and it is French. And as we have those two official languages, then I want to actually take an example. And because I'm a hobby photographer, of course, and because of our photographer doc, like we should definitely want to see this, I want to take an example of Nikon Canada website. So Nikon Canada website, as you know, Nikon is one of the manufacturers for photography, and it's a really good example. So we have Canadian side, which you will check, but I just want to first briefly show you the both languages. So we have English website, and for example, we have French website. I'm going to break it down, I'm going to explain it, but let's start anyway, step by step. The first part I want to talk about is this. So, what is usually a good practice, for me, when I come as a customer, for example, I accidentally open the French website and it is like, how to say, like, I don't know, that I don't know French, I know English, or if I open, for example, Spanish website and, how does it say, I'm like, no habla español. Yeah, so I want to get to what I can't understand. But what is the really good point about this is that this shows that, for example, Nikon Canada knows their audience. So they have actually adapted their product so that they can reach the whole of Canada, because Canada has two official languages. So, and it is really good to say that the better you know your local customers, the better your products will do, because this is something that applies even for example, for durability. You have to get to know your product, because once you do, you can get the most out of them. So that's something extremely important. And of course, from user perspective, ending up in a familiar language and being able to switch is nice. And anyway, I want to get back here, and I want to take a full look at the English version again. And apart from this, I would like to talk about the lenses. So I'm going to go to lenses box for a little perspective, and I'm going to also add a French version back by back. So we can see that we have shared the moment and we have Portuguese d'un temps. So we have in comparison. And we can see, for example, that they have some differences, but that they look mostly the same. So we can focus, for example, this part for the start, and we can see also this button. And we can see that, for example, they have difference in the number of characters, which I will tell in a couple of moments why it is important, and that we have the difference in the pixel size. So that means that this text is longer than this text, which is also what we expect, right? And you can see that it's also nicely adapted. So the here is this apostrophe, and that it looks kind of nicely adapted. Anyway, why is this important? So I, for example, can calculate like the ratio between English and French, and I notice that that ratio is like 1.45. So 1.45, we're going to see why it is important. And it is important because when we have content inside languages, we can see that, for example, French by average, that ratio is usually 1.6. But what we need to be aware about is that our languages have a difference. For example, what I say Croatian, or what I say Lithuanian, or French, or I don't know, Japanese, or something like that. All of it will have differences. So some will be longer, some will be shorter. And of course, it's also important, and what I'm going to talk about very shortly, is that we have to aim for simplicity. If you make something complex as how to localize, you are going to have difficulties, you are going to have it, you're going to be, I don't know, oh mi padre, or something, yeah. you know. So, so we have to keep in mind. So if you want to check more about this, this is the source like really useful in text here, and they have a lot of nice information and much more languages listed there. And why is it important? Because examples can be extreme. For example, the first example I want to mention is views. And when you have views and you want to check it in views or TEO or power meter. So first example is in Korean. For example, if we check views in Korean or TEO or in German or power meter in Finnish, you will notice that views, for example, looks like this in Korean. I won't try to pronounce it because I don't know Korean. But if you check TEO, for example, the thing is that German language doesn't have abbreviation for TEO. So of course there will be much longer words. And of course, sometimes word combination doesn't exist even for Finnish. So for power meter, this is the word, like this is the full word. So I won't even try to pronounce it. I know it's a little bit low, sorry. Yeah, can you see it? Okay. So you can see that it can be a lot of different. So recognizing and accounting for this is important. So let's look at a few examples. And Isabel will now be happy because now it will be Spanish. So we have to always assume that the text will grow or shrink. So we can have FAQ in English, which in Spanish is preguntas más frecuentes. Or we have health insurance company, which in German is Krankenversicherungsgesellschaft. Yeah. So we can see that this can be different. And we see that abbreviations are not universal, that they vary really a lot. Or that we can have compound nouns, something like this, where it can be difficult to translate or something like that. Or also we need to be aware of languages, because some can have really different fonts and styles, like Arabic, Chinese, Korean, etc., etc. And of course, I want to return again to Nikon Canada website. And I want to now talk about text, which I think will be even funnier part for everyone. So let's check. We have this text. Who here thinks it's easy to read? Easy to understand? Easy to translate to your language, for example? More or less, right? Yes, more or less. Okay, the point is, we have one example which I want to mention. Now, I have this sentence. Can you try to, does anyone understand what it is? The firmament is a globe with a multiplicity of scintillating celestial bodies. So basically, this is one I took a dream example, and when I simplified the sentence, sky is full of stars. So what is my point? This is, let's say, how we can complicate. If you try to translate this to your language, or for example, it's about the Spanish, I think it will give a header. But this is easy as hell, right? Or for example, I tried to agrify one example from Bill Stuff website. Let's say, get a flash of what the folks attendees, partners, talk givers who partook in the previous Conf have to author. What's an artisan translate, right? And this is, for example, from the Bill Stuff website, how they wrote it, and this is much easier. Right? So clear language is something that benefits everyone, even those with disabilities or hearing impairment like me, because we usually need more time to process everything. So simplicity in language, like adapted to our audience, is something that is extremely important. And of course, we need to prepare for it. And inside InfoBip, there is one good practice, one good way of writing, which is called plain language or plain English, which is good to know, which is good to remember. Because when you do it, your text that you write should be easy to read, easy to understand, and easy to translate. You see, when I ask you in the beginning, of course. And what we also have is like some sort of writing rule book. So we can have something like this. It is easy to understand or easy to get around. Who thinks it's not easy to get around? Me as well. And we have something like this. Is this easier? Much easier, right? Yeah. So we have several. We talk about practicality. We need to actually make sure to do something. So our content, whatever we do, needs to be broken down into short sentences that are easy to read and easy to understand and easy to translate. Then we need to use easy vocabulary because you need to know your audience. You need to know your product. And we need to skip the lingo, like not make it complicated too much. Try to avoid metaphors and idioms because they can be very hard to translate in different languages. And what I did here is I put everything chunk by chunk, bullet points, tables, like rows, something like that. It can be much easier to understand. And of course, this is significant for us because we all want consistency and we want an exceptional user experience. And of course, I want to talk about one more thing, which is something that's very personal to me. We have, for example, what I will probably my next example is the World Wildlife Fund website. But I want to focus our attention to this screenshot. So we have website, article, and we have a post, and we have this caption. So who among you uses captions when you watch YouTube videos? About 80%, right? Now we'll be shocked to the next part. So we have captions, and do they bring you benefit? Who captions do help? Okay. Now this is the point. So we have, and usually they always bring benefit, and that's heck yes. And as I'm hearing impaired, as I'm 55% deaf in both ears, I can actually vouch for that. So, I want to introduce someone who has a very good session, who is actually also one of the advocates and also the founder of audio accessibility, and that's Svetlana Kuznetsova. And she had one very good talk on that. We said this. So actually, we have 80% of caption users who are not deaf at all and use captions, which basically all of you have proved because about 80% of you raised your hand. Then also, these are the users like who are learning a new language, or if you have some really hard to understand accent you're listening to. And also, when you have captions, your viewership is actually increased by 40%. And also, if you have captions, 90% of those videos are watched beginning to end. And 75% of mobile videos are actually played on mute. And thanks to caption, your comprehension is actually built up by 56%. So this is something very interesting to know. And regarding translation quality, what is good to say, how we ensure it is by working with UX writers. So you should prepare plain English guidelines with UX writers, made it actually how we should prepare the text. And also, I said glossary. So prepare the tools. How are usually patterns gonna be like? How usually are actions items gonna be phrased right and that. So try to have consistency. Try to have agreements as much as possible. So try to set it up like that, because such practices will help you ensure that you have precise translation that resonates with audience from different cultures and languages. And of course, I want to return again to this example. I don't know for which time. And I said this, like, at the moment, partage don't count. So this means the moment. So we can see that really is aligned, that it really is consistent. So we can really see that this is working quite well. And anyway, let's actually discuss the importance of content adaptation. So we have World Wildlife Fund, which is a very good example for accessibility. And we have, for example, global version, which is about oysters. And let's say that I want to open the Canadian version of World Wildlife Fund, or maybe first see what is here. So we have Madagascar, how to produce animal feed, grasslands, restoring forests. So it's all very global, right? But let's say that I want to check, remember oysters, let's say that I want to check the Canadian website. And the Canadian website is not about oysters, it's about polar bears. You can also see that again, we have switched from English to French and French to English. So we can see that, this is something not present in international website. Or if we check what is here, we can again see that it is more a custom for Canada, right? Polar bears, tuk and emperor penguins, and this is something thoughtful, and why I think that World War Fund is a good example of accessibility, because this thoughtful creation actually leads to more compelling experiences. So they adapted their website to the customer so that they can have what Canadians are interested in, so that they can resonate with the readers. And of course, we need to be flexible with this, and we need to actually modify our product so that they can match cultural context, right? And when we design for different languages, of course, we need to adapt the language as we saw. We need to prepare for expansion and contraction. We need to have clarity and accuracy because everything should be easy to read, understand, and translate. Then we need to be language inclusive. So we need to recognize that sometimes we will need more text and there will be extreme use cases. And we need to have a global communication. So we need to cater and reach actually the audience we want to reach, which is usually the international one. And of course, I want to consider one more perspective. If I tell you reply, what does it mean? Yeah, no context, right? You're right. So we have no context, and we can see that we're missing some context, right? We don't know which of these three I meant, right? But let's say I give you a screenshot. Do you now know what reply is for? So reply, basically here, it means that it is an option on the drop down, which is like a verb, a call to action, which you can now select many, and you can decide which button, for example, you want to use. Or for example, I have type model name. That means that I want person to type the model name, or do I want to specify that, for example, this is that model, like this model type? We again don't know, right? And if I give you here, type model name, immediately clear, right? So this is also a very important thing, and this is something that is called context. So we need to actually make sure, keep a little bit because a little bit behind. We need to think to have context that is prepared for translator, that actually prepared for our customer, because we need to know what is intended out of those. And I have one explaining the context, but I have to keep ahead a little bit so that we can save time because we are behind. But just long story short, in EPUB we have ensured the context translation system that actually allows us to cater and automatically take screenshots and integrate them into whole continuous integration workflow. So we take the screenshot automatically and we attach it for the phrases so that translators can know what the context is for and how we translate it. But when we want to elevate translation quality, we have glossaries, like I mentioned, so that we can know what is what exactly, and we need to be consistent, like always do it in the same way, and have handbook, like, of course, because we need to actually show the context king, and that we need to also make sure that with context we actually improve the quality of our translation. So, and of course, what if I told you that localization is much deeper, because we want to adapt every possible part of the application. So let's talk a little bit about languages. So I want to actually look at the whole tangled web of languages all around the globe so that we can see what it's for. And let's think about something. So let's imagine that you're reading a book left to right, for example, in Arabic or Hebrew. And now let's say that I take a book, flip it around, and tell you to read it left to right. Wouldn't work, right? It will look weird. And this is, for example, what I want to talk about. So right to left languages, which have a different way of writing, like for Hebrew or for Arabic. Yeah. So I have to consider right to left languages so that we can see, because they demand specific attention as they are read differently, and it doesn't affect only the text, because it also affects the layout and everything else, because we have to have several considerations here. First thing is that we usually need help pluralization, because if you have, for example, Arabic, pluralization there is handled differently. because it doesn't have one cast, multiple casts, no cast. It actually has different pluralization for broken plurals, sound plural, and even feminine plural. So it can be a very tricky thing. Anyway, let's check one quick example. Well, I'm going to just show you briefly how we have it, set up like. So we'll use Apple for illustration, and we will use also I2 format, which is like standardized format for how we actually write the language. So we can have, for example, equals to 0, no apples, equals to 1 apple, or we have, 28 apples. But let's check how it is, for example, in Arabic language. So we have English phrase, for example, we have different plurals. Arabic, for example, has these rules, like for no apples, it's the same. For 1 apple, is same. For 2 apples, is same. But if a few apples, it is between 3 and 10. One saying, different saying from 11 to 99. And for example, different saying from 100 to 102. So it has a very different way of handling things. And I won't now read into this because I'm not sure if it's correct, but my point is just to show you how different it can be, because it's good to be aware of the languages, because sometimes you're going to need like that. If you need to reach some very specific audience, for example, so it's something good to be aware of. Anyway. So it will, in the end, for example, look like this when it is translated in the Arabic translation is prepared, because we have everything in that I2 format and everything is seamlessly connected and applied. But we need to be aware that we need to actually design with pluralization in mind, because it should be your best friend and it should be your backbone for having very precise translation. So have pluralization support in your code, and the designers remember that languages can expand and contract. And also remember that you should be aware of I2 format, because it can help you much more. And of course, when we design, of course, we need to be aware of a couple of things, like that it go from right to left, that numbers can be handled differently, for example, and that we need to be respectful to culture, like how we're culturally prepared, because we need to have very good cultural environment, and we need to actually test our product, make sure that it is accurate and that it is not something exalting or something sensitive. And we need to also think about date and time formats, which I'm going to also go a little bit quickly through, because we can have different locales, different languages. For example, Croatian is like this, or English US and English Great Britain is like this. Then we can have Spanish, and then Lithuanian. Yeah, so one more side with Lithuanian. And for example, Japanese. So we can see that all of them are different. Or for example, we can also have numbers. So we have numbers, for example. You can see that they're also shown differently. Or Mexico or Spain, for example. Then we can have relative times, like, I hope there are no mistakes. Yeah. So we can have relative times. We can see that there are a lot of differences between them. And we will always have like this. And we want to simplify writing this. I personally don't want to add it manually. And that is something very good what we have. And inside the code, we have something what we can use, what is called Unicode Common Locale Data Repository. It basically means that you have internal or international object actually extracted inside of your browser, so that it can be present, it can be visible, it can be here with internationalization support. So it can be useful, you can use it, and it will definitely help a lot, and you can have things like this handled automatically. And of course, we need to be aware that we have to be consistent. So that's why this internal format helps us with this. So we need to agree on the format. So agree about that with your designers, UX writers, so that you can be consistent. And of course, localization is so much more than translation. And of course, I want to talk about some cultural norms, which is actually, I think, to be the part that will be funnier for everyone. So first thing, I want to talk about Dr. Strange and the Multiverse Madness. So we can see one difference here, right? So we can see that hand gesture is different in international and Italian version. Now, why is that? Because this gesture actually in Italian means this go signal, signals that the wife of the person is cheating on him. Yeah. So that's why it's changed. For example, this is one example about how you are actually adapting for your audience, you know? So we need to be aware of that, you know, and we need to prepare for that because everything we have, everything that is present needs to be adapted for our audience. And so we have idioms, for example. We can have different idioms. For example, if you have something like this, you don't know what it means at first, right? Or Japanese, even monkeys fall for feast, even a blind hand packs the grain. So these are something that's specific for languages. And if you try to translate it to English, it doesn't really make sense here. So this is also a good point why we should avoid having such things inside our station or our product, you know, because idioms are hard to translate to be literal in different languages. And of course, I also can skip around a little bit. They need to be aware that they can have different meanings, and as I said, we should avoid them if possible, you know. And of course, I want to talk about colors because colors are very important, and there's very different hats in different cultures, you know. So we have a white color, which in Western culture means innocence, harmony, tidiness, purity, matrimony. And in Western, it means when you leave Western borders, in Eastern borders, it means completely different things. So sorrow, misfortune, death, and rebirth. For example, in India, widows usually dress in white. You know. And for example, red color also in Western cultures we know love, passion, passion of rest, or something like that. Rage. Eastern culture, it has again black, wealth, joy, prosperity, sadness. And for example, I stand in stock prices in China, rising one are actually in red color, for example. Yeah. Or for example, the one that is funniest to everyone, green color. One because no, in green, in Western cultures, Mother Earth, health, development, well-being, envy, you know, wicked witch of the West and that. East, it means fertility, good luck, affluence, Islam. For example, we have Ireland, we of course St. Patrick's Day, and we have China, where in China it has unique twist. It means unfaithfulness. And in China, if you have an emoji with this hat, it usually symbolizes that a man is being cheated on by his wife. Yeah, you know. So, you know, it is like that. So, this day is going to be funny for everyone. And of course, when you craft the colors, we need to be aware of how we use them, that we properly associate them, and that we are culturally aware so that we don't have anything, you know, what can be insulting for people. And of course, one question, who knows that this is offensive in Asia? 83% of people didn't know. Yeah, and we can have some fun emojis. Now this will be funny, right? So we have our first example, and that is thumbs up, which we already mentioned, you know, means approval or agreement. The middle is basically giving a middle finger. Then we have this emoji. We know what is in here, right? And in Japan, it means good luck. Yeah, it's called unko, good luck and fortune. Then we have this one, leave. But then I want to guess what it means in China. It's called to having sex. You know, making love called to sex. And for example, we have this one. This means awkwardness, nervousness. Or in China, it means excitement. You know, like, you know. And if you want to check more about those, there is one really good website which is called, I don't have it yet, but you know, you can check it out. We can check more emojis. I will just very briefly go through them. Like just to mention 2-3 more interesting examples because we are way behind. So we have about 10 slides left. So for example, we can have this. You know, this for example, in some countries, this means colon, intercourse, or insult, for example. Well, this, like I said, it means adultery, like invitation to sex. Or this, for example, in China is sign of death, for example. Yeah. Or let's say that we have this. We can turn a head gesture, which, for example, in Korea is a sign for dumpling. When in Israel, it means hold on, relax, or be patient. For acronym, this is greatest of all time. Like the rest of the world is a little goat. Yeah. Our graphical elements, we have icons, emojis, pictures, and we need to be aware of them, what they mean, and so that we can be culturally aware of them. No? And of course, it's good to be aware because they can help really a lot for accessibility. Because if we have all parts prepared properly, so that we can have like everything aware, everything easier available, you can actually help them understand localization, what each part does, even if someone is not familiar with the phrase. And it's good to point out some parts, especially this helps a lot for the hearing impairment, of course, because we usually need more time to process the thoughts, what we read, and you can see with this, this again, World Wide Funds website, that is really good example. And of course, I'm gonna skip over this part, so I want to show you, so with graphical elements, I want to show you one good example. So I prepared one little POC, which I tried to use what we have out of practices, and I prepared a custom GPT over GPT-4, which is like localization lens AI. So this is just a simple POC, but I did try it, for example, on Blue Stuff website, and actually gave quite nice results. So let's just show briefly, So it analyzes content clarity, layout structure, cultural appropriateness, terminology, language consistency, user engagement, optimal pose selection, appropriate sizes, text expansion, internationalization, ambiguous phrases, graphics. So it does all kinds of analysis, and it's very useful in that aspect. Anyway, I will be wrapping up now. I know I skipped over a few slides because we will be about 5 minutes behind, but I will be now done like in 3 minutes. But you can see that, it basically concluded the website seems to have a clear layout and degree of simplicity, which is really good, which means that built-up website is prepared really well and is actually prepared for localization. So it wasn't possible to determine everything, so it basically said that it needs more evaluation to be a little bit more precise. So I think it's a good result. For example, for graphic evaluation, it's sent to graphics team professional or relevant to the conference team. For example, it did that. It did a very nice analysis. Yeah. So this is cool, right? Yeah. Okay. And just to wrap up. So what are some of the most important points? Just to do some main takeaways. Localization goes way beyond translation in much broader context. And we need to keep phrases simple, clear, and easy to understand. Then we need to have effective localization done with right people and need to actually nurture communication, ensure some sort of consistency. And cultural nuances actually hold a mirror because helping them help you actually make your application appropriate for the cultures. And also be aware that translation can be longer or shorter. And before I wrap up, I put some stickers here. After the session, you can come pick up. We have, of course, ducks. We have some neon ducks. We have a lot of variety of the stickers. So, and I have some cool pins. How like I have it. I have a couple left, so you can pick them up. And a few of them which are unique, or I had only one of them, like this one. See, it's really beautiful. I share it for you. So it's first come, first serve, or how it's in Croatian. Who first? His girlfriend. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, if anyone wants to connect with me, be in contact, you have how to say my contact information here. You can follow me on Twitter or now X. You can add me on LinkedIn. You can also scan this very cool QR code, and again, duck, of course. and see how it could look like mountains and fog. And of course, before I wrap up, of course, I have a little bit tiny more, like more duck quack quack, right? So I want to say achoo, thank you, and nice listening to you all, and I hope they like my session. So thank you.